الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك الحق المبين وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله سيد ولد آدم أجمعين صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. Just to announce to everyone, Bulugh al-Maram was supposed to be today, Kitab-Siyam. But due to the fact that we don't know if everyone has reached them the news that we will start Kitab-Siyam, for that reason we'll just do Kitab-Attawheed just for tonight. And we'll start Kitab-Siyam officially Sunday, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, Jalla wa Az, which will be 7 o'clock. As all the lessons in the evening now will be officially, the time is changed officially to 7 o'clock, due to the fact that Maghrib now is becoming very late. We don't pray till about 8 o'clock, so that reason, just to inform everyone again, that we'll start the evening classes at exactly 7 o'clock in the evening, inshallah. Insha'Allahu bi'idhnillahi jalla wa az. So do not forget, everyone, again, the lessons have been changed to 7 o'clock. The same day, the schedule hasn't changed as far as the days, but as far as the time, that it will be 7 o'clock in regards to the evening classes. As far as the sisters class, inshallah, there's a little bit more I wanted to try to figure out in regards to whether or not we'll take a little bit of fawaid in regards, or a little bit of benefits in regards to women's ments that's all tied in with siyam and things of that nature. But more than likely, we'll continue with Surah Thalatha with our sisters, and maybe, like we said, we'll switch kitab-nikah, the book of marriage, into the kitab-siyam. Like I said, everything is going to be figured out. Inshallah, we'll figure everything out and finalize it tomorrow, inshallah. But the next chapter in Kitab-Attawheed, if everyone looks in their books, the new chapter is the chapter that says, Bab ma ja'a fi al-dhabhi li ghayrillah. Bab ma ja'a fi al-dhabhi li ghayrillah. The chapter which comes in slaughtering or sacrificing for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So do not forget, everyone, to bring your books. That's of the utmost importance. Bring your books if you can, and try not to forget it, because like we said, these are classes that we would like to go and finish books. These are not regular lectures that one just sits and listen, but these are classes that we try to go and finish a book. Look the lines, and we try to pick out every statement from the author and extract the benefits in which the author has mentioned until we stay upon this method until we finalize and finish the book to the end, inshallah bi'idhnillah. So again, we say, in regards to the title, the new chapter, which will start, Bab ma ja'a fi dhabhi li ghayrillah. The chapter which comes in slaughtering or sacrificing for other than Allah. You'll find that the author, the mu'allif, you'll find in this chapter, you'll find that he says, the chapter which comes in slaughtering or sacrificing for other than Allah. You'll notice that he tries to hint towards the dalil, to the evidence without the actual hukum, without the actual ruling here. You'll find in some chapters that the great Imam, Shaykh Muhammad Abdul-Wahhab, rahimahullah, some of the chapters he actually gives the hukum, he gives the ruling. For example, ja'a or tahrim, or the impermissibility of what? The impermissibility of sacrificing the place for other than that was slaughtered in it, a place for other than Allah. Or the chapters that preceded, for example, if you look in the chapters that we cover, you'll notice in the chapter has previously been covered that it says, for example, Bab min al-shirk, lubs al-halqa wal-khayt. That from polytheism is wearing of a what? Al-halqa wal-khayt. The wearing of something that's tied, of a ring, or what have you, or string. If you notice in the chapter that we already covered, he gave a hukum. He said tahreem, the impermissibility of wearing a what? A ring or a string. So you notice that he said what they call in the Arabic language, jazama bil hukum. That he gave the actual what? Ruling in this regard. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? He gave a ruling here. He said, Bab min ash-shirk lubs al-halqa wal-khayt. The chapter which comes in, the wearing of a halqa or al-khayt, wearing of a ring or anything tied or what? Or a string. So you'll find that he here in this particular chapter that we already covered, what did you notice? He already gave a what? He gave a hukum. He gave a ruling. And he also gave a sure ruling. That is what? It's impermissibility, the impermissibility of wearing these particular items or these particular types of what? Things that we mentioned in the previous lesson. Then we will have, for example, the chapter which we covered, Bab ma ja'a fi ruqa wa tama'im. Then we also covered the chapter. Where's your books? No books. Your books. Bab ma ja'a fi ruqa wa tama'im. The chapter which comes in incantation and also what? Talismans. That was the chapter we also covered. We finished that, right, everyone? So in regards to that, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, you'll find that in this particular chapter that we covered, you notice that he changed the title up a little bit. Everybody focus. The chapter which comes in incantations and tama'im. Notice in another chapter in the heading, he kind of changed it. Why? Because the author knew when he started this chapter that there are some incantations that are what? Permissible, and there are some that are what? Impermissible. So he didn't give a hukum. He didn't give a ruling in this particular chapter. He did not give a ruling. So you notice that the title is that he was what? Very, very precise and accurate what he wrote. So when he wrote what had been written, if you notice, the previous chapter he gave a hukum. He said tahreem. It's impermissible, the impermissibility of wearing those what? Those type of items or those talismans or anything tied of those halqa or the ring or string or what have you or anything similar to that. Here in this chapter you'll notice that he put that which comes in talismans and also what? And incantations or charms. Why? Because we noticed that we said and we mentioned previously, what everyone? That incantations is from them that is what? Permissible, and from them it is what? Permissible. طيب. So now if you look in the other titles, like we said, now if you look in the chapter that we covered, just finished, the chapter which comes in seeking blessing by a tree or rock or anything similar to that. So now we also discuss another type of what? Method that the great Imam that he put in his book. What is that method, everyone? That method you'll find in this title, and especially the one we're about to cover right now, the chapter which comes in sacrificing for other than Allah. Also keep in mind that these chapters that have been mentioned are all chapters that gives details of the meaning of La ilaha illallah. The meaning of La ilaha illallah. Which you'll find that a lot of the Muslims are heedless of. Especially those from the deviant sects, in which you'll find that they do not cultivate the community upon this, which is the most utmost of importance. You'll find that they start with other affairs that will not benefit the Muslim, best rather waste their time. And it will also what? Increase them in more weakness and more division, even though they don't realize it. Rather, you'll find, like we said, the meaning of La ilaha illallah, as we know, is stressing the point of unifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His worship. طيب, what are those affairs in which it's obligatory upon the slave to unify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What are the aspects of worship that's obligatory upon the slave to unify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in? As far as for that aspect of worship, where Allah is what? Singled out in those different types of worship. What are they? Because that's the most important. A person says, La ilaha illallah. طيب, now we have to know what are the different aspects of worship where one has to unify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in. What are they? Here's in all those chapters that the Imam has mentioned. that we have already been covering for the past 3 or 4 months. We've been also saying, for example, the chapter which comes in talismans and also charms. That's another meaning of La ilaha illallah, of how a person unifies Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his worship. Or what comes in, like we just covered, last class, the chapter of the one who seeks blessing by a tree or a rock. But now you'll find in the chapter that we just covered, we also covered another aspect of worship, which is what they call tabarruk, which is seeking blessing. That's another aspect of worship in which is obligatory upon the abd, or one, to unify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that particular worship. And that seeking blessing was something other than Allah, or what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated as a way to obtain blessing through it. But ultimately, like we talked about, if Allah ta'ala made something, whereas you can attain barakah by that thing, that we still direct it or seek the barakah from Allah directly alone. Such as, like we know, whether it be from the aspects of praying in a certain masjid, such as Al-Haram al-Madani or Al-Makki, or even in Quds, Al-Masjid al-Aqsa, where the Prophet ﷺ had said that we can pray in those masajid and we'll attain those rewards in regards to those different salawat. That one prays in it, then the salat will be those different rewards that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ had mentioned. However, even though one wants to attain barakah through these type of affairs, he still only seeks it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So one of the aspects of worship, where we just covered, was what they call tabarruk, meaning seeking blessing by something in which Allah legislated for one to attain blessing by. Not by your own what? By your own ideas or your own opinions on what or how one attains barakah, but rather how Allah legislated, and also the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you notice in the chapter that we covered, if you look in your books, the other method that you'll find, if you look in the title, like here, if you look in the new chapter that we're about to cover, notice it says, Bab ma ja'a fi dhabhi li ghayrillah. The chapter which comes in, sacrificing for other than Allah. This is another type of method that he put in his book. What is this method? He wanted to hint and make the one with a student of knowledge, direct them to the dalil, to the evidence, besides actually giving them the what? The hukum. For example, you'll find at Ahl Ilm that when they make these type of chapters and they give a heading, sometimes you'll find that they don't give the hukum. You'll find in this particular title, he didn't give the ruling. He didn't give the ruling. Because usually, like we said, if he does not give a ruling in this particular matter, such as this title that we're about to cover now, which is what, everyone? The chapter which comes in, sacrifice of other than Allah. Usually this matter has in it some details. Has some details. So the hukum or the ruling is not general, but has some details. As for the affairs in which you'll find that he gives a sure ruling in, he says it judgment, for example, such and such is haram. It's a hukum, it's a ruling. Just as, for example, the ruling of the obligation of the salah, or the ruling of the impermissibility of backbiting, and what have you. Here, impermissibility or obligation, that's a ruling. The duty of performing such and such, or the obligation of staying away from such and such, that's a ruling. Here he didn't put a ruling in this particular what? Chapter. Why, everyone? Why? Because this matter has in it details that he wants to what? That he wants to teach the student of knowledge, which we're going to talk about in a minute, inshallah. So like we said, you'll find in a lot of Ahl Ilm, in their chapters and their headings, there's a lot of benefits, especially in the Sahihain, such as Imam al-Bukhari, what he put in this Sahih. You'll find there's a lot of different abwab, where he puts headings, in which even Imam al-Bukhari himself puts a hukum, he puts a ruling down. And in some titles, he will put or switch it, in which it has some details. And it's the same type of what? Method you'll find the great Imam Muhammad AbdurRazzaaq rahimahullah, even though Imam Muhammad AbdurRazzaaq came way after Imam al-Bukhari, by some years. So yeah, ma'ish al-ikhwa, this is the chapter which we'll start on today. So you notice that it comes in the chapter which is what? The chapter which comes in sacrificing for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. طيب. we talked about, like we said, he didn't mention a ruling here in this title or in the heading. He didn't mention any hukum. Right, everyone? He didn't mention what? Any hukum. Why didn't he mention any hukum? Because like we said, there's some details. What is the first detail? The first detail, number one, that dhabh was sacrifice. Number one is a type of what? That which is done for other than Allah Ta'ala. Meaning that someone sacrifices an animal, which we could talk about the different types of sacrifices there are. We have hadaya, we have adahi, we have aqa'iq, from the aqiqah to the end of it. We'll talk about that in a minute, don't worry. But you have the first type of dhabiha or dhaba'ih of sacrifices. What are they? That which is done for other than Allah, out of magnification and glorification. That's the first category of the type of dhabh. What is dhabh? To offer a sacrifice, to slaughter. That you do it out of magnification and glorification of that particular thing. For if one now sacrifices and he offers as a sacrifice to other than Allah, to draw close by that thing that is created, then we know this is the type of polytheism in which Allah Ta'ala has what? Prohibited. For one is to die in this state, then he will be what? Joined with the polytheists in the hellfire, dwelling therein forever. Because, like we said, number one, we need to realize that sacrificing is only for Allah. It's a type of worship. So it's obligatory that what? That one unifies Allah Ta'ala in that worship. And if one gives that worship to other than Him, subhanahu jalla fil ula, then what, everyone? Then he has nullified his Islam. Due to the fact that we said sacrificing is an aspect of worship which is obligatory upon the slave to unify Allah Ta'ala in that particular worship. Hence, if he dies in that state where he fell into this particular affair or fell into this particular sin, which is from the greatest of all sins, which is shirk, then, like we said, he has nullified his Islam. And if he dies in that state, then like we said, he'll be joined with the kuffar in the hellfire. Nasallahu yu'afina wa iyyakum. So the first type of dhabh is that which is done out of magnification or glorification for what? Other than Allah. And this is not rhetorically being asked. If I ask you guys, I hope you guys will answer, unless I tell you it's rhetorical. طيب. For in regards to now the first category, what do we say? That which is done for other than Allah. طيب. You have now a second type of sacrifice, which is just merely just to slaughter a meat for your guests, or out of honoring your guests, or out of rejoicement for someone coming to your house. So one has a sheep on his farm and he slaughters it for his guests. But it's not out of magnification, glorification for that particular person. But however, it's to honor one's guests, or to honor one who he has not seen in a long time, or what have you. So he takes the animal, slaughters it, out of what? To be generous and to be honorable to his guests, or to be honorable to one who came to him, whether it be from a relative or a friend or a loved one or what have you. For that type is like, ya ma'ashal ikhwas, does not remove from the fold of Islam. Rather, is from those normal matters in which it's requested from a person to do so. So the origin in this matter is al-ibaha. So the origin of it is that it's what? It's natural. There's nothing wrong with what you're doing. So something that's natural. But in certain instances, no doubt. As we know, honoring your guest is something that is highly emphasized. Rather, it is obligatory to what? To honor your guests and the different rights that they have. So that's known. So notice that based upon the second category is a type of sacrifice that's not considered what? Shirk. It's not considered shirk. Rather, it's considered what? It's considered from those normal matters in which everyone indulges in on a daily basis, in which it is done out of honoring one's guests, or to show hospitality to the end of it. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying so far? So that's the second category. طيب. This is to show now what, everyone? This is to show the details that the great Imam knew about. That he knew about this. So that reason he did not mention a a ruling in the title or the heading of the chapter, if you notice. Based upon the fact that he knew that these details were what? Is what's included in this particular matter which we're discussing. That's why he did not give a ruling. So that's the reason why we gave some of the details just as an introduction to the rest of the details that's about to come, inshallah. Another example of the first category, which is polytheism, you'll find that some of the Muslim countries that they do this type of sacrifice which is unlawful. For example, a person who's of high status, or a person who's a ruler of the country, or a person that possesses some type of high status amongst the people, you'll find out of glorification, meaning of the heart, and magnification, glorification, to the point they even raise him as if he's somebody to the level of Allah Ta'ala, and they slaughter for him, sacrifice for him. Then, like we talked about and said, this is what? This is major polytheism. This is major polytheism, in which, like we said, if it's done, then one has nullified his Islam or her Islam. He has nullified it. And like we said, he dies in that state, he will dwell in the hellfire forever. For if a person does this type of sacrifice, like we said, out of magnification and glorification, and it does not matter whether it's the Prophet ﷺ himself, or any of the prophets, or the malaika, or the angels, or anyone who is righteous, just because the one who's done for it does not change the hukum, meaning as far as from the creation. For one slaughters for the sacrifice for the creation, whether it be from a person who is righteous or a person that's not righteous, it doesn't matter. If it's done for other than Allah, it's still considered what? Polytheism. It doesn't matter whether you slaughter for someone righteous or you slaughter for someone that isn't righteous. The hukum still stand, or as they say, al-hukum wahid, la yataghayyar. So the hukum is one, and it does not change. So that type of sacrifice, like we said, is polytheism. That's the first category. You'll notice also in regards to what we mentioned, that the great Imam, he even put an evidence. Once he gave the title, he brought the evidence, which is in the ayah where Allah Ta'ala says in this book, he says, قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ وَبِذَلِكَ أُمِرْتُ وَأَنَا أَوْلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. The Allah Ta'ala that he says in this book, that he says, verily my salah, my prayer, my sacrifice, my life, and my death is for Allah, Rabbul Alameen. He has no partner, and this I've been commanded with, and I am the first of the Muslimin. In regards to what you'll find, qul, verily, or say, inna salati, saying that my salah, as Ibn Kathir that you find that he mentions in this ayah, in his tafsir, that he says that inform the mushrikeen, those who worship besides Allah, other idols and other what? Deities. And also likewise that they slaughter for those deities. They slaughter for those what? Those particular deities. That it's obligatory to unify Allah Ta'ala and to make their worship sincere. As far as in the salah, in the prayer, and in their what? In their sacrifice, both together. Because the mushrikeen that worship those deities or those idols or what have you, and that they slaughter for it, that Allah Ta'ala had commanded to oppose them. And for them, I mean us the Muslims, to go away and to deviate from what they're upon, meaning the mushrikeen, not to leave off what they're upon. And also likewise to what? To now turn their hearts and direct it and traverse and have their niyyah directed towards. And also have that strong resolve upon not only starting with the what? Their sacrifice, but also turning their heart towards Allah as far as in worship. As Mujahid, you will find that he mentions it says, of course, once the heart is turned to Allah, then will also likewise the action has to be included with it, starting with the rectification of that morsel of flesh, which is the qalb, which is the heart. And that is directed to Allah Ta'ala alone. Then likewise, like we said, then the sacrifice and offering it, which we'll talk about in a minute and picking out the details of it, likewise, what includes in that is also directed towards Allah. You'll find in Ma'ash al-Ikhwa, in which we'll discuss also some details, in which the great Imam, Sheikh Muhammad Aman al-Jami, rahimahullah, that he said in this regard, and which we'll discuss in a minute, that when one sacrifices something of meat or what have you, you have two types of things and affairs that are done. Now this is what I'm talking about now. He says, firstly, when one slaughters, the heart has to be directed to Allah, the niyyah. The intention has to be done what? For Allah Ta'ala. The niyyah has to be for Him. You understand, everyone? He said, then what accompanies along with that is the love, is the actual wording of pronouncing and saying Bismillah upon that particular meat. So it's not only just the what? The love. So it's not only just the what? The wording that has to be for Allah Ta'ala. It has to be accompanied along with that, what everyone? The niyyah. He said the niyyah, if it's for other than Allah Ta'ala, he said that, of course, is polytheism, but he said that is afdha' wa aqbah. He said that's more horrible and that is more what? Horrific and worse. Then the person who slaughters and his niyyah is for Allah, but he might pronounce over the meat other than Allah. I'll say it again. He said the niyyah, of course, this is where the what? Sacrifice starts with, which is the niyyah. That it has to be directed towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The niyyah. Then you have on top of that the second matter, which is what? The love, or the actual wording, which is pronounced at the time of slaughtering. So it's two matters, the niyyah along with what? The basmala, of course, or pronouncing Bismillah over the meat or what have you. He says you'll find in which the niyyah, if it's directed to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is more worse and more horrific or more horrible than the one who sacrifices, and his intention might be for Allah, but he pronounces over the meat other than Allah, even though both of them are considered shirk. But he's talking about the magnitude and the level. That's even worse. So, if one has the niyyah, of course, for other than Allah, and even pronounce it, then he's gathered between both matters, which are what? Very evil. But you'll find that there are some people that do intend to slaughter for Allah, and they, however, they might pronounce something other than Allah upon the meat. That does happen. But however, he's saying that is worse, and that is what? And that is more horrific and more horrible. That's the reason why we said, in regards to what we're discussing here, that one starts with rectifying his niyyah, or rectifying his what? His heart, being directed towards Allah alone first. Then after that, allowing the what? The slaughter of the meat to commence with the pronouncing of Allah Ta'ala's name upon it. So one gathers between both affairs, not one without the other. Rather than coming upon the slave to what everyone? To gather between both affairs. So he starts off, even say Ibn Kathir, that he mentioned the same matter. He says, فأمره تعالى بمخالفتهم والانحراف عما هم فيه والإقبال بالقصد والنية والعزم على الإخلاص. So he said, starting off with the what? The heart. So he says that the mushrikeen, that Allah Ta'ala says in the ayah, if you look in your books, that he was commanded to address the polytheists. How? Allah commanded to oppose them by going away from what they're upon and embarking upon, meaning the mu'mineen, with their qasd and their niyyah and al-azm al-ikhlas. With their what? Their qasd, their niyyah, wal-azm al-ikhlas. So notice that Ibn Kathir focused on what everyone first? What? The intent. And also that strong resolve upon ikhlas. Where's the place of ikhlas, everyone? Jade. So Allah Ta'ala now rectified the heart, and then now came the action that follows, that accompanies along with that comes after the rectification of the heart, such as when Mujahid says in the tafsir, he said the meaning of nusuk, when Allah Ta'ala calls salah, it's clear. When Allah Ta'ala says nusuki, meaning my sacrifice, of course, my sacrifice. So nusuki means what, everyone? When sacrifice, as also likewise a dhahak that he mentions, it says, So my salat, my prayer, and my offering, that sacrifice, is for Allah. There's another secret in this ayah, which we'll pick out in a minute, inshallah. طيب. Notice in the ayah, when you find that Allah Ta'ala says in the last part of it, He says, As-salat, salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati. So salati wa nusuki. What is that hinting towards, everyone? It's hinting towards Tawheed al-Uluhiyah. It's hinting towards Tawheed al-Uluhiyah. Like I talked about before, you'll find in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala will mention Tawheed al-Uluhiyah wa Rububiyyah together in a lot of ayats of justifying the reason why one is supposed to worship Allah Ta'ala because He's the one that does certain actions in which the Muslimun, even the Mushrikun knew. So as a result of it, they knew that, as a result of them knowing this knowledge of Rububiyyah, that they're supposed to what? Unify Allah in that aspect of what, everyone? Uluhiyah. So notice in the ayah it says, وَنُسُكِي salati wa nusuki. Those two matters are aspect of ibadah, which is what? My sacrifice and my what? My salat. That's ibadah. It's worship. So that's hinting towards what, everyone? Tawheed al-uluhiyah. It's hinting towards Tawheed what? Al-uluhiyah. Notice in the second part of the ayah, what is it hinting towards? My life and my death. What is that? Rububiyyah. Rububiyyah. So it's heading towards what? Uluhiyyah is mentioned first. Then, Rububiyyah is mentioned at the end part of the ayah. Why? Because we know that Rububiyyah is mentioned in the Quran as in order to establish upon the creation that He's the one that deserves to be worshipped, especially if the one who gives my life and the one who gives my death, then it's obligatory upon me to worship what? Or make these affairs, which are part of the aspects of worship, that my salat and my sacrifice is for Him. Because He's the one that is what? That in His hands is my life and my death, because He's the one that causes this, which is imata and also ihya, which is giving death and giving life, which is from the aspects of the affairs of rububiyyah that we mentioned on many occasions. طيب. So now, as we say, also likewise, when Allah Ta'ala mentions my life and my death, meaning of what I've been given, meaning my life and my death, it also means what I've been given in my life of al-Iman and al-Amal al-Salih. That's also the meaning of Mahyaya wa Mamati. The meaning of Mahya wa Mamati, that what I've been giving as far as in my life of Iman, of faith, meaning of the heart, in which Allah has given me, of Iman and also righteous actions. And what I will die upon, likewise, of the same matters. As far as Iman and Al-Amal al-Salih. As we know, those are the most two great important matters. That there's nothing more valuable than those two matters. Why? Because they're responsible for what will be the reason of how you survive or your survival will be on the day of resurrection. Your survival on the day of resurrection, when everybody's raised after their death, relies on those two matters. Anything else is irrelevant. Everything else about you being a black man in the dunya, or you're a white man in the dunya, or, I'm black and my man is black, and, we from such and such place, and we from this background, we bad boys. All that is irrelevant in the grave. All that is irrelevant on the day of resurrection. The only thing that will benefit you is your iman and your righteous actions, no more, no less. So your survival of that relies on these two matters, in which if Allah has given you both, then you have received the greatest of matters in this dunya, which is of Iman and righteous actions, which is the fruits of Iman. And in the day of resurrection, which is what, everyone? Which is also in the hereafter, where all of our survival relies upon, which is Iman and also Amal Salih. So just to sum up and be concise, what that ayah means is what I've been given of Iman and Amal Salih, and what I will die upon, of course, likewise, of Iman and Amal Salih in the hereafter. طيب. Notice in the ayah, likewise, ya ma'ashar al-ikhwa, as we know, salah is something, as we all know, of course, the meaning of salah. We also know that salah also means dua. It's a type of dua. What type of dua is it, everyone? Abdul Aziz. A salah is a type of what? It's a type of dua, but which category of dua? Is it dua al-ibad or dua al-mas'ala? Or could it be both? We said that dua breaks down to two categories. However, we said that the meaning of salat can mean dua, of course. But what we know is dua of ibadah. It's the worship itself. It's the second category of dua, which we know. Right, everyone? طيب. We know that it means it's a type of worship that possesses statements and actions which are known, that it inaugurates by takbir, and it's also finalized by taslim, as we know, no doubt. I think that's known. طيب. One now asks the question. When Allah Ta'ala, of course, in the end of the ayah, it says, Mahyaya wa mamati lillah, that is for Allah, Rabbul Alameen, La sharika lah, wa bidharika umirt, wa ana awlul muslimin. Somebody's alarm going off? Oh, it's time for the other. Any other one? Father, someone want to call the other? What happened? Okay. Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. Inshallah. الله أكبر الله أكبر وفهذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آتي محمد السيوف فضيل وضعت مقام محمود الذي وعته. طيب. In regards to what we mentioned, Ya Ma'ashar al-Ikhwa, that we said, notice in the ayah that it says, Lillahi Rabbil Alameen, and which we know that Allah Ta'ala, when He mentions His name, Subhanahu, Jalla fil Ula, which is Allah, then that's also an indication towards Al-Uluhiyah. Because the word Allah comes from the word Al-Ilah. Of course, we know the deity, Al-Ilah. But however, linguistically it was flipped, they dropped the Hamzah and it became Allah, the one who deserves to be worshipped. طيب. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions His name, Lafdul Jalala, which is Allah, then it's an indication towards the uluhi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In any ayah, if He mentions Allah, that's an indication towards Him being unified in His worship, the name itself. And we know that the word Al-ilah or Allah comes from the word, or it's from the wazn or the scale in the Arabic language, which is fi'al. Fi'al. Fi'al is just another way of saying maf'ul. Maf'ul. Anyway, on the scale, the linguistic aspect of it, fi'al or maf'ul just means something that is done. Or, for example, they say ibad or ma'bud. Ma'bud is something that is worshipped. So, likewise, the same thing. You go back to Allah. Allah, initially, linguistically in the Arabic language, it means ma'lu. Ma'lu, which is also means ma'bud, which is worshipped. Allah means, or al-ilah means ma'lu. Ma'lu, ma'luhun. And ma'luhun means ma'bud. Ma'bud, something that is, or that which is worshipped. At any rate, the word lafdul jalala, which is Allah ta'ala, anytime that it's mentioned in the ayah, it's an indication towards what? Towards the uluhi of Allah. And that's the point we're trying to make. So keep that in mind. So anytime Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions his name, in the lafdul jalala, then it's an indication towards tawheed al-uluhiyya. طيب. So now it says Rabbul Alameen. So notice now, we went from al-uluhiyya to rububiyyah again. Rububiyyah. For rububiyyah, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa is mentioned in Ar-Rabb. When Allah ta'ala mentions Rabb, then it's hinted towards the first category from the aqsam, the categories of Tawheed, which is likewise rububiyyah, that we mentioned in the first part of the ayah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions these affairs of Tawheed in this ayat. Also likewise, again, He mentions uluhiyah along with rububiyyah again in the ayah. So not only that He mentions Himself, that He said that all these matters are for Him alone. Subhanahu Jalla Sha'nu, it is for Him. And Allah Ta'ala mentions it again in the same ayah. If you look in your books, what does it say? Lillah Rabbil Alameen. Follows it up with rububiyyah again in the ayah. Who's the Lord of the what? Al-Alameen. As we know, Al-Alameen, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, can be used for two things, the two affairs. Number one, the first meaning of Al-Alameen, meaning that which is other than Allah, which is the creation, which is makhluq, from the makhluq. طيب. As we know, the khalq or the makhluq is designed for there being the creator. As we know, the designs of that Allah Ta'ala exists is the creation. That's the evidence. Everything that's created is a sign and it's a alama or is a alam that there is a khaliq. As we know. As Allah Ta'ala, as the sha'ir he says in his poetry, فَوَعَجَبًا كَيْفَ يُعْصَى الْإِلَهُ وَكَيْفَ يَجْحَدُهُ الْجَاحِدُ لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ لَهُ آيَةٌ تَدُلُّ عَلَى أَنَّهُ وَاحِدٌ. This is the poetry. فَوَعَجَبًا كَيْفَ يُعْصَى الْإِلَهُ وَكَيْفَ يَجْحَدُهُ الْجَاحِدُ في كل شيء له آية تدل على أنه واحد. He says how strange and how amazing how the deity can be what? Can be disobeyed. Or how anybody can what? Deny His existence. That everything that is created, that is what? There's a sign for it. Meaning, and it indicates that He is the one, that it indicates towards that He is the one that deserves to be worshipped. طيب. So, the al-alameen, like we said, number one is used only on what? The first category is used for what? Everything that's other than Allah, which is the creation. As Allah Ta'ala is not called al-alameen, right? He's the Lord of al-alameen, everything that is created. You'll find also there's another meaning for the word al-alameen, meaning that which is used or restricted to a certain people at a certain time. That's restricted or used for people at a certain time. For example, Allah Ta'ala had preferred Bani Israel over the Alameen. That Allah Ta'ala had preferred Bani Israel over the Alameen, over the rest of the people of that particular time. As Allah Ta'ala says, وَأَنِّي فَضَّلْتُكُمْ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. That I preferred you over al-alami, mean alimi zamanihim, that the creation of their particular time. So al-alamin can be, for the first category, used for what, everyone? It could be used for what? It could be used, number one, for what? Everything other than Allah. That's the first category. The second category it could be used for is what, everyone? A group of people for what? A specific time. J. طيب. You'll find in the ayah likewise, from the benefits of it. Stop biting your nails. You'll find that from the benefits of this ayah, what is extracted from it, you'll find in the ayah that Allah Ta'ala says in His book, فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. I'm sorry, everyone. Stop it, Allah to be late. That's the other ayah. That's the other evidence we didn't get into yet. طيب. So we got to finish this off. Notice Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says in the ayah, after He says He's Rabbul Alameen, He's the Lord of Al-Alameen. So He started off with Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. Then He ended it off with Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. Then likewise, Allah Ta'ala mentioned it again, which is Tawheed wa al-Uluhiyyah again and Rububiyyah again in the ayah. You mentioned, if you notice. And the ayah is pointing out to the two aspects of what? Worship, which is connected with al-Ibadah, which is also Uluhiyyah. Nusuki wa mahyaya, my life and my death, which is a hint towards Rububiyyah. Because we know Allah is the one that gives death, and the one that Allah Ta'ala also likewise what? Gives life. When Allah Ta'ala mentions Allah or Lafdul Jalala, that's a hint towards what, everyone? Uluhiyyah. Rabb is a hint towards what? Rububiyyah. Again, Rabbul Alameen, the Lord of everything that exists from the creation, of course. Nor he has no partner, subhanahu wa ta'ala. La sharika la, if you look in your book. La sharika la. He has no partner. Meaning no partner, not in his essence, not in his names, not in his attributes, not in his actions. Allah is wahidun fi dhatihi, wa fi asma'ihi, wa fi sifatihi, wa fi af'alihi. Allah Ta'ala is no partner for Him. Not in His what? Not in His essence, not in His actions, not in His names, not in His attributes. He has no partner. Because all of His attributes and His names are perfect. It has no what? No type of incompleteness to it. As for anyone else, then they just have the general meaning. But it is not perfect. And nor do they resemble Him in those what? In those perfect names. At all. However, the creation, as far as in the mutlaqul kulli, as they say, as Shaykh al-Islam mentioned in his book, that the creation, as far as in their characteristics, and the Creator with His characteristics, the only agreement that it takes place is in the general name. That's it. The general name, or the general meaning. That's before the connection in the what? And what you're connecting the characteristic to. And that only exists in the mind, of course. That doesn't exist because everything outside the mind is muqtas. Everything outside the mind is what? Everything is connected to what is connected to or we want to say as far as the creation, but with Allah, His characteristics are with Him. And He does not what? Resemble the creation in any of His characteristics, nor vice versa. As Allah Ta'ala, as far as in the name and in the general meaning, it agrees. And that's before the idafa takes place, or the connection takes place. But once, as we know, the connection of Allah, with His characteristics and His names, and the creation is connected with their characteristics and their names, there's no resemblance whatsoever. Is there any resemblance? So you'll find that the agreement, as Shaykh al-Islam says, that only takes place in what they call al-mutlaqul kulli. This is not in any explanation that I'm mentioning now. Brothers, trust me. When I teach, I get from different sources. I'm not sticking to one book. I'm going from here, from this. That's my job. That's the reason why I went to study overseas. I went to go overseas to do research, to listen to the ulama, listen to their benefit, and get benefits from different sources. I'm not focused on just translating on one book. I didn't start studying for over the years and years and years just to just read out of one book and go by and just translate it for you guys, and that's it. I'm not just you have to realize when you're a student of knowledge, you're not just a translator, you're a teacher. And you also have to use your own mind in certain matters. You do. A lot of people think, oh, you're just a student of knowledge, you're just a translator. No, you're not. You have to have knowledge of the religion to know what? Know how to do research on your own and do certain things and give it to the people. A lot of people think that students of knowledge, y'all just translators. No, we're not. A lot of us sacrifice maybe 10, 15 years. We study under ulama. We write down our notes. We do our research. We was commanded to do research, and the ulama tells us to do it too. Do your research. Research, read. But the ulama, they give you what? They give you a good understanding, and they also what? Summarize the matter for you to try to save you time in certain matters. But for the most part, they'll tell you, they refer you to certain sources to also to let the student of knowledge be able to what? Do his own research. A lot of people think that. That's the That's it, y'all just translators. No, we're not. You understand, everyone? So I get my information from different sources. I'm not just focused on one book. Different sources, different scholars, different things from Ahl Ilm that I know. So I'm just focused on one thing. I'm giving you guys the information, gathering it together, and giving it to you. Jayid? طيب. So I'm about to close because we got to close out in 2 more. How many minutes we have? Probably about 5 more minutes. طيب. In regards to now, where it says, Allah Ta'ala, there is no partner for him, not in his names, not in his what? His attributes, nor in his what? In his essence, nor in his what? In his actions. He has no partner. طيب. When it says now, from that I which been commanded, this is what I've been commanded with. You've been commanded with this, which is an indication towards what as they call it, hasr. It's restricting these matters that is only supposed to be for Allah. It's putting emphasis on it. And I am the first of the Muslimin, in which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. I'm going to probably have to wrap this up because this has some details in it. That I'm the first of the Muslimin. A person might ask a question. Those who the prophets were upon previously with the other with the other nations, all of them was upon Islam. There's no difference in what all the prophets and the messengers came with. All of them came with Islam. Every single last one of them. But as we know, Islam, as they call it, as you'll find the A'imma, as they say, and from them, Sheikh Muhammad al-Jamili, he said, صار الإسلام في هذه الأيام علم بالغلبة على ما جاء به الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. He said, but however, Islam has become علم بالغلبة على ما جاء به الرسول. That now in these days and times, you'll find that Islam has become something that is a signpost that stands out upon what Muhammad only came with. Right, everyone? That's usually what comes in the minds of the people. Of course, the non-Muslims. But however, generally, all the Anbiya and the Prophets all came with what? Islam. Inna dina inda Allah al-Islam. Very religion with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what, everyone? It's al-Islam. But however, all of them, the Prophets and the Messengers, unanimously came with what? Came with Islam. Is it clear, everyone? But however, like we said, you'll find in these days and times that it became like a signpost that stands out, or a sign that stands out of what Muhammad ﷺ came with. That's usually in the minds of the non-Muslims what they think. They think that Muhammad is the only one that came with Islam, but however, the prophets and the messengers didn't what? Come with Islam. But we know that Allah Ta'ala has what? Informed that all the prophets and the messengers was what? All of them were upon the religion of Islam, every single last one of them. And they were upon the unification of Allah in that particular matter. طيب. So meaning of the ayah, so a person might ask a question here. I'm the first of the Muslims. So based upon what I said, is this true? Here in this ayah, I'm the first of the Muslims. Say, O Muhammad, this is what I've been commanded with, and I'm the first of the Muslims. All the prophets' messengers were Muslimun. Every single last one, and their followers were Muslimun. Based upon what I mentioned now, I said that all of the prophets and messengers came with Islam. So now apply this here to the last part of the ayah. I'm the first of the Muslims. All of them were Muslimun. And the khitab, the addressment here is for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You understand my question? The addressment here in the ayah is to say, Muhammad, that I'm the first of the Muslims. But we know that all the prophets and the messengers from before were all Muslimun. It's easy. Just to answer the question, because you got what time is the Iqamah? Iqamah is right now, isn't it? Is it supposed to be like in about 4 more minutes? What time? Five more minutes. We're supposed to pray at 5 more minutes? Oh. طيب. Just to sum it up, you'll find that they mention in this regard two things. Firstly, the first of the Muslims. That the meaning of it is, I'm the first of the Muslims from this ummah. From this particular nation, meaning not the nation of Islam, but the nation of the last legislation to all humanity, which is the Sharia of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Jayyid. That I'm the first of the Muslimin from this ummah. Because those who came before were all what? All of them were Muslimun. All of them were what? Muslimun. This last part, or the second type, we might have to break it down a little bit later, maybe next class when we have the time, inshallah. There's another meaning. This might cause a little bit of confusion. طيب. Another thing that we'll end this benefit off, the word Muslimin. As we know, Islam, that it means what, everyone? What does Islam mean? ما معنى الإسلام? What's the meaning of being Muslim? What does it mean? Submit, that's it. Submit. If a person asks you, what is the meaning of Islam? What is the meaning of you being Muslim? I want to know. Now a Muslim comes up to you. What is the meaning of Islam? What's the definition you're going to give him? Jayyid. That's the word. That's what I'm looking for. Yes. To submit to the Creator, well, submit for Allah, or submission to Allah by what? By unifying Him in His worship. That's the definition. Istislamu lillahi bit-Tawheed. Translator. That's the last part. No. What's the second? You guys are missing the middle part. When qiyadullah bit-ta'a, you said it in Arabic. Just obeying. Subservience or service to Him, or if you want to say humbling or submitting yourself by obeying Him. And al-bara'a min ash-shirki wa ahlihi. Serving yourself from what? Polytheism and its people. That's the meaning of Islam. That's the meaning of what? Islam and being Muslim. That's the meaning. Don't be from those who comes on the train or somebody say, yo, what's the meaning of Islam? Your mommy asking. Oh, it means peace. No, that's not the name. That's not the meaning of Islam. It doesn't mean amin. That's from what it necessitates. That's what it will bring about eventually. But that's not the meaning. طيب, we know that Islam is from those affairs which are what? Also, we talked about this before because we got to hurry this up. We talked about that Islam and Iman are what? They are from those affairs that if it's mentioned in certain places, it comes together, and if it was mentioned in a certain way, that it goes apart. إذا اجتمعوا تفرقا إذا تفرقا اجتمعوا إذا اجتمعوا تفرقا. If they want, what does he mean by that? When Ahl al-Ilm mention that? That if it's what? If it's mentioned in the context, is what? If both of them are mentioned in the context, Islam, Iman, they what? Jayyid. They separate and take their own meaning. But if one is mentioned in the context without the other, Jayyid, one comes in together with the other. Mumtaz, Jayyid. طيب, Islam was mentioned here because there's no way. Islam was just mentioned alone here in the ayah. Can't we say that Iman also falls into this? Jayyid. Iman also comes into it. Jayyid. And also likewise, If Iman is just mentioned by itself in the ayah, then what goes into it likewise? Islam. So a person cannot have or be a mu'mineen, of course, unless he has Islam. So they come together. طيب. Another thing. As far as in Islam, we know that Islam and Iman, as far as Islam is pertaining to the what, everyone? Al-a'mal al-zahira, the outward actions. Iman is talking about what? Al-a'mal al-batina. The actions of the what? Of the inward actions of the heart. You understand, everyone? طيب. Because if you look in the hadith of Jibreel, what does it say? Mal Islam, when Jibreel asked the Prophet ﷺ, what did he ask him? What is Islam? What did he say? What was the answer the Prophet ﷺ gave? The 5 pillars. Notice all those things that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned are what? Actions of what, everyone? Outward actions. Al-a'mal al-zahira. طيب. Now if you get to the what? When the Prophet ﷺ mentioned Jibreel, when Jibreel was answering the questions, when the Messenger of Allah was answering the questions and Jibreel was confirming it, what did it say in the other part? What did it say? That Iman, تؤمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر وتؤمن بالقدر خيره والشر. طيب. All those matters are what? أعمال الأعمال الباطنة. It's the actions of the heart. Is it clear what I'm saying so far? So you'll find that these are from those affairs, which is given a clear example, that they were both mentioned in the what? Both were mentioned in the context separately, but they're both there in the context. So they all took their own individual what? Meaning of the actions that were done outwardly and the actions that were done inwardly. طيب. Now if you drop one out the context, what is an example of that? An example of this is, there's an ayah where Allah Ta'ala mentions, and we have to stop because the people are praying for the prayer. We have to stop. طيب. طيب هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Don't forget, again, brothers, please don't forget, kitaab-attawheed starts Sunday, so Bulugh al-Maram, again, this Sunday. Don't forget, we'll start at 7 o'clock. Not after Maghrib. 7. Because they said Maghrib is coming in very late now. So, again, just bring their books and we'll start at 7. All the classes now for the evening will be at 7 o'clock exactly. 7 o'clock. So don't forget your Bulugh al-Maram, kitaab-attawheed. As far as the sisters class, same time. But as far as we're trying to keep usul al-thalatha. But like I said, I'm going to have to figure out whether or not, like we said, we want to try to merge a couple of things which in regards to the fatawa, the ahkam al-siyam, in regards to the women or women's fasting. Meaning, for example, the feeding of the children or breastfeeding woman or the woman who's pregnant and her mens and things that's connected with her mens and things of that nature. All those things I'm going to have to, like I said, figure out. But more than likely, it's going to still be Bulugh al-Maram. But I just have to figure it out. I probably have to announce it, tell the sisters just to look on Twitter until I announce it, inshallah. So look on Twitter so the women can be on clarity before Sunday. More than likely, I'll have a decision by tomorrow, inshallah. Any questions about the lesson? So many books. Submit. More than likely, I think if you go back to Qawaid al-Arba', it should be in there. It should be in the 4. Is it in the 4 principles? I'm trying to think of something basic right now. They could find that in. It should be in Usul Thalatha. The ta'rif of Islam. Al-istislam billahi bit-Tawheed. Usul Thalatha. والانقياد له بالطاعة والشرك والبراء من الشرك وأهله. It should be in Usul al-Thalatha with the explanation. Alhamdulillah, like our brother Hamzah Somali, hafidhullah, that he translated with Sheikh Ubaid Jabiri's explanation. It should be in there. Just type it in Google, shake Google, right? And put in the meaning of Islam. Usually I'll put like a keyword in, like for example, Salafi or something like that, and it should come up. Anything, questions about the class, brothers? About the class? طيب وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.